So today I have with me Queon Wilcox. How are you doing, Queon?
Oh, I'm doing phenomenal. Early morning, but I love it because I wake up early usually, so this is perfect for me.
Yeah, I've been a stay-at-home dad for 10 years. I can definitely identify. I got a 5-year-old in there right now sleeping. It's a very rare occurrence that he sleeps this late, but I'm going to take all the advantage I can.
I was gonna
So
say you got them sleeping. Dang, I'm jealous. My 6-year-old, she's up at what seems like I'm up, and then 30 minutes later, I trust and believe she's looking for me. If it's on the
oh yeah.
weekend or like a day like I'm off today, she's 30 minutes after I wake up, never fails. Here she comes, all in a poopy mood. And it's like, no one told you had to wake up. I would appreciate it if you actually were still asleep because I'm actually still drinking my coffee. But it's cool. Come on
Right.
out, come on down, enjoy dad, or join dad on the couch. No, you don't want to sit next to me. Okay, fine, whatever, I guess. It's so I feel that. I feel that.
Yeah, it's kind of so the that's actually the best part of my day when my 5-year-old wakes up because he comes in and he greets me with a smile every day. It's a smile. Hi, Dad, and he's real
Yeah.
excited every day. So I love it. But when he sleeps later, I dig that because then it gives me a couple hours to wake up and hang out with myself and do my
Yeah.
things. And of course, with like my wife's been off this week, so I've had the opportunity to set up, like many interviews. Like earlier in the week, I did 3 interviews on Tuesday and 2 interviews on Monday, and it's just been a grind all week for me this week, but it's I love it. So this is my
That's
hobby. This is
awesome.
what I love to do. Now you run a podcast yourself called Mediocre Dads,
Yes,
and
yes, I
I
do.
I didn't really realize that until this morning. I was doing a little bit of research before, but
Mhm.
I got caught up in my daily routine and spaced it out. So as I was doing some more research this morning, I was like, "Oh my goodness, this guy's a podcaster. That's awesome."
Yeah.
And you're also a veteran, aren't you?
So I am still active duty. So
Active
my
duty.
life, yeah. So my life is busy. So so my that's why I said wait. I was like, yeah, my day starts early. My day starts Monday through Friday at 5. I wake up at 5 o'clock every day. But yeah, I'm active duty. And then so Army is my 9 to 5, if you will. But even though it goes beyond 9 to 5, but Army is my 9 to 5. Podcasting is what I do on the side because I love it because I enjoy talking. And then I'm also in college right now. Working on finishing my second bachelor's and then trying to start my master's in like January. So I'm a very
Wow,
busy
I'm
person.
impressed.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you. But a biggest thing about all the best part about all of it is I'm a dad and my kids and my wife, they make it all worth it. So very busy, but it's okay. We make it work.
that's what's up. That's what's up. I love that, man. Like being a dad is the most rewarding thing that I've ever done in my entire life. Now, like I've been a dad most of my life. I started this journey when I was 18 years old. I've
Oh
got
wow.
21 years of parenting experience with children under the age of 18. My oldest is 21 and my youngest is 5. And
1-1.
yeah, let me tell you, it's definitely a challenge sometimes, especially with my age. I'm 39.
Mm,
So it presents itself as a challenge in the aspect of I have quite a bit more patience now than I
yeah.
used to. And raising my 5-year-old versus my older kids, it's like I like to compare it to grandparenting, like as I would imagine a grandparent is, that's how I am with my 5-year-old. No, at no point in the day are we ever serious, and I'm the
Yeah.
kind of ice cream for breakfast kind of dad. Like if, oh, yeah, ice
Love it.
cream, you want ice cream for breakfast? It's got dairy. Let's do it,
We're gonna make it work.
Yes, yes.
Oh
But
man.
hey, you mentioned Army, man. Thank you for your service, your active duty.
Yeah.
What do you do at work?
So I'm an Army counterintelligence special agent. I don't know if you're familiar with the show NCIS.
I am. Yes.
Okay, so I do that, but for the Army. So that's the best way I could explain it. Is and I could go into the spiel of what we tell everybody. Like hey, this is what we do. This is how we support people, whatever. But most of the time, people kind of look at me weird, and I'm like, all right. You've seen NCIS? They're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I do that for the army. The only difference would be like NCIS does criminal and they do counterintelligence. In the army, I only focus on counterintelligence, so I don't focus on the criminal aspects such as well, everything is criminal, if you will, but not in the criminal in the sense of someone committed a crime of stealing, murder, or whatever the case might be, right? I don't, that wouldn't be me. That'd be CID. I do counterintelligence, national security crimes, treason, sabotage,
Right.
and all that. So, yeah.
So you work closely with like DHS and well, your department work closely with DHS and CIA and all them.
We work a lot. We have the opportunity, yes, to work with a lot of different agencies, which is pretty cool within itself, right? Because they on they have different authorities and different abilities, and us being an army asset, if we will, we
Yeah.
focus on army personnel and army equities. So, if it
Awesome.
ties in, then sure, we definitely can work with a plethora of different agencies. If not, then it's our thing, and we take it and run with it and see what we can do.
Awesome. This is my first conversation with an intelligence specialist. So,
Oh, well, yeah. It's a pretty cool job. Don't get me wrong. So when I first heard about it, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was like, I don't even know what that is. I've never even heard of it. And they were the individuals I was talking to, they're like, no, we think you'd be a great fit, blase blase. And I was like, I mean, I'll talk to my wife about it. I was like, honestly, I was gonna tell him no. I was gonna be like, nah, I'm good. I'm good. But then sure enough, one thing led to another, and our path is kind of out was my path was kind of opened up, and next thing I know, here I am, and I've been doing it now for over 5 years now, and so it's
wow.
been a journey. So,
That's awesome. And like I said before, thank you for your service. So, what you train quite a bit for that job, I'd imagine.
yes.
Has that training helped out being a dad?
Yes and no. So, well, it's not a no. I won't even try to fake the funk. Yes, it has. So, a big part of our job, or my job, is to be able to conversate with people and kind of lead and direct a conversation, if you will, right? Because
Yeah.
we do a lot of talking and we do a lot of the best way I can explain it is almost being like a car salesman, because we want to sell our services to the local commands or other commands that we're supporting, but 9 times out of 10 they don't know what we do. And as
Right.
crazy as that sounds, right, being in the military, you would think for the most part everybody has an understanding, or knows what everyone kind of sort of does, or what piece they can play on the chessboard, right? That's not the case at all. And so we get confused a lot with other entities such as CID who do criminal stuff. But how that goes kind of helps me with being a dad is because I have to explain myself and to a lot of different people, and kind of, this is going to sound mean, but dumb it down, right? Because I can use my terminology, or the terminology that we use within our fields, but most people wouldn't understand it, right?
Right.
So it's not to be demeaning, it's just to say, hey, it's going to be easier if I say it this way so you can understand, because my goal here is to communicate with you for you to understand, not confuse you and be like, oh, you're like super smarter than me. Now, that's not my goal here at all, you know.
Right.
So related to me being a dad is I have to do that with my daughters. I have to, if they do something wrong, for example, my 6 year old, she will do something wrong, but if there was two or three things before that she did wrong that led to the bigger issue, right? But she only sees as, okay, the issue is I came in dad's office while he was about to record, and with my sister, and we knocked everything down. It's like, well, okay, that is an issue within itself. However, what led to this was the fact that you came upstairs and I told you, hey, you can't come upstairs right now because dad's about to record. So you and your sister need to stay downstairs with your mom and watch Bluey or whatever the case might be. But then you still came upstairs even though I told you not to come upstairs, right? You know what I mean? So like I
Yeah.
having to explain to her, like, hey, this event led to this event, and then this event caused this event. This is why dad's upset, is because it seems like I'm just yelling at you because you knocked over the light, which I can pick up a light, I can move a light. No, it's the fact
Yeah.
that you went through all these steps, even though I told you I try to prevent all of that, and you still went through it, right? So now I have to explain to you where you went wrong, but also show you empathy, show you love. Like, hey, I love you. This is nothing. This is not dad trying to be angry, just show I'm in charge. This is dad trying to explain to you we have to think before we act. So it helps.
Absolutely.
It helps trying to just navigate that and explain and just and lead them in a way where it doesn't come off as dad's only the discipliner or the angry guy who's just out here to yell at us whenever we're being mean to mom or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, man, I tell you what, you said something right there that really got me. It's not that dad wants to be the disciplinarian. I find that's one of the most difficult parts about being a dad is having to
Mhm.
be that disciplinarian when you've been the fun guy all day, you know,
Yeah.
and it's something I struggle with because, so my wife works full time and she also has a side gig in the evenings that I go help her with, but so she's not home for probably 10 to 12 hours a day.
Mhm.
And she's not here to see everything that I deal with during the day. And let's see, maybe the kids are acting up in a certain way where I not feeling like I want to deal with it and mom's home. And so I like to just hand the kids to mom and walk away. And that's
Yeah.
not always the best thing to do for mom. But I find I find myself being upset sometimes, like, man, I just want a break. I just want to stop being mean to these kids, is what I feel like.
Yeah.
I feel like if I'm always so I have this saying that I say all the time. If you're always a hammer, everything's always a nail.
Yeah.
And
100%.
I hate being that way. I dislike it with a passion. I'd much rather be the fun guy, the fun dad who's hanging out with the kids all day long and playing around and never a serious moment, but sometimes we have to have those serious moments with our kids. And
Yeah.
that I can definitely appreciate with your job and your skill set. It absolutely helps with not just being a father. And so I love podcasts. I watch a lot of podcasts, and I'm seen a lot of podcasts with intelligence agents, and they talk all the time about how it's not just helpful with the wife or helpful
Mhm.
with the kids. It's also helpful with any relationship you have with any family member or friends. The psychology part of intelligence work really helps you understand people, and
Yeah.
so that way you can nurture your your relationships with that knowledge. They don't have to know, like, hey, I
Y-
understand what's going on right now. And I'm massaging the situation a little bit in my favor. They don't have to know, but
Yeah.
that's absolutely I love everything about the military myself. Like I never served, but like I just I don't know if there's a term for what I feel I am like ultra patriotic, like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
love the military. Like I'm not such a big fan of my government, but I think that's all with all Americans.
Oh
So,
yes. You all
so
I will say this. Um every it's so funny. I can so I I'm sorry. I have a lot of internal thoughts of just of laughter,
oh
but
no, you're fine, buddy. I
um
have ADHD real
oh
bad, and
oh, me
so
too. Or okay,
yeah,
we connect. We're good. I already took my
absolutely.
Adderall, so like I made sure I took it like an hour before we press record because I was like I don't ramble on too much. But um but no, so I always tell people my beliefs or what the case because be by doing a podcast, right, and in some ways I can be considered a representation of the military or the DoD, but I put it out there. Myself and my content is not a representation of the DoD. So now that we got there out there, and that being said, I completely agree. The government, they I don't agree with a lot of things they do. And it's hard because being in easier and to put it in easy terms, being a tool, if you will,
Yeah,
for the government, and being a willing tool, if you will, because I did sign a contract. No one put a gun to my head, said, "Hey, you will do this," and so I have it's a weird economy or relationship, but I make it work, and I'm obviously they're gonna do what they're gonna do to make it work for them as well, right? So
absolutely.
it's kind of like we both know we're playing each other in a way, but at the end of the day, we're kind of like, when I don't need you, I'll get rid of you. And when you don't need me, you'll be ready to go. You know what I mean? And in the end, we're good to go. So it's one of those things. But I would say when it because you mentioned about intelligence agents and kind of talking how they utilize these skills is a lot of it comes from um, previous experiences. And so a lot of people would like to believe that you go do this training, and when you do this training that you just got this, they just taught you everything under the sun, right? And the reality is the people that they're looking for, whether it is Army counterintelligence, whether it is NCIS or OSI for the Air Force, or human CI in the Marines, um, the reality is the people that they attract or that attract are attracted to doing intelligence, or even other agencies in the government, CIA, FBI, whatever, enter here, right? Um, it's the personality of the individual usually is fits what they're looking for. So that person usually it can be an extrovert and has the ability to fit in majority of social situations, rather than trying to make this person who was an introvert before a complete extrovert. You know what I mean? And get them
Yeah.
out of their comfort zone and all these things. Don't get me wrong. There is an aspect of getting out of your comfort zone, but I will say is most majority of the people within that in the field are people who are accustomed to being able to talk to other people and build conversations and read body language. Read some of the simplest body language, like, oh, this person's uncomfortable. Okay, let me just kind of back off, say, hey, it was good talking to you. You know what I'm saying? Or they don't know what I'm talking about. They're staring off, they're looking at me, but you can see their eyes are glossed over. Got it. I need to kind of dumb this down a little bit, So a lot of it is just skills that you've learned in your previous job, wherever it may be. But now when someone says, hey, look at this specific thing, this is what this is called, what you're doing, you're like, oh, I've been doing that my entire life. So it's just putting
Yeah.
a
It's like
name to what you've been doing. So yeah.
bringing awareness to the situation.
Yeah, 100%. And so
Y-
it's useful, because as you said, like when we communicate with people just on a personal level, whether it's your family or your friends or people or people you just met, it's a useful skill to be able to like, oh, okay, this is how the conversation's going. Okay, I need to follow the flow of the conversation. Let's not put a complete wrench in this conversation. Or they ask me a question, instead of just saying yes, oh, nothing else. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, like
Yeah.
we're
Just
explaining, you know what I'm saying? Because it's a conversation. So it's a very useful, and like I said, when you kind of are aware of what you're like, oh, this is what they were talking about. It comes to light, and you're like, no, it's pretty cool. So,
yeah. Yeah. So like with the do you find that having ADHD, well, so to expand a little further on that, I have ADHD and high anxiety. Do
okay.
you have anxiety?
So yes and no, but I don't. If my doctors are watching, no, I do not. I'm good. I am totally. It's just the ADHD. That is all I have.
So in my experience, my ADHD and anxiety helps out with those type of situations.
hmm
It so if you ever heard of a CIA fella named oh hell, now I done forgot his name. Um it's not important. But anyway, he's on a Everyday Spy, Andrew Bustamante, that's his name. You ever
Okay.
heard of him?
I have not. I'm good with
So
faces, not with names. But
he's on YouTube. Everyday Spy is his YouTube channel, and he's got a big fluffy afro. But
oh, the
his
he's a light skinned dude, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and yeah. I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about.
So
Good, like I said, good with faces, terrible with names.
he says that his anxiety and stuff like that really helps him with the job, and then CIA really recruits people like that. They recruit people who have high anxiety, ADHD, because those things, those diagnoses often lend themselves to things that the CIA is looking for in an operative.
Mhm.
And that I wanted to ask, do you have any thoughts on what you might do after the military?
Yes. So it's funny because, as I continue to serve, and I'm because I've been in for over 10 years. I'll hit 11 years in November. And
Holy
so,
crap.
yeah, I joined when I was 19, so I've been doing it for some time. A lot of different experiences, gone to a lot of different places. But I didn't start with this job when I first joined. I was a what we know is what they call a paper pusher. I was
Yeah.
HR, so I just process paperwork and all that. Excuse me. And then it led to me finding this job now that I'm in now. But afterward, I thought about it for a long time. And most people will try to get out and say, I'm going to go join a three-letter agency. I'm going to go do they're going to go do a program that allows them to continue to work alongside military within the same job field of intelligence or whatever the case might be. But I tell people all the time, it's like, nope, I want nothing to do with it. I want nothing to do with it. When I'm done, I'm done. I have 9 more years left that I'm obligated, if you will. But after that, I might do the max time I'll do in the military is 23 years. That's in
Yeah.
there things have to line up perfectly for me to want to say, yep, I'm going to do 3 more years past my 20. But the max I'll do is 23. That being said, when I am, and it's all said and done, and I am done, I will not do anything in intelligence. I'll still utilize the skills, like I said, because I utilize them every day of my life. But I will definitely not be doing that. I'm going to be a right now, what I think the Lord is leading me is to be a pastor. And so then I'm going to get into the pastoral work and been doing that and doing that stuff, which I love doing. So with Mediocre Dads, right? So on Thursdays I do a live episode, and it's a Mediocre Dads Bible study, and I have a
Yeah.
co-host who joins me. We do a live episode on Thursdays, and whatever the case might be. And so I really love doing that because I really love talking about the Lord and spreading the good news, and really kind of just expressing my beliefs and my faith, and how I was to how I got to where I am now. And so, it's while I love what my job, I love learning about the different new skills or different things that we're allowed to do or capable of doing. When it's all said and done, I'll be good. I don't want to. I have no interest in continue to doing this because it is a very political field, if you will, because you
Yeah.
gotta you gotta play that line of like, okay, hey, I'm this is my job, this is what I'm doing, right? But then for some people, they see everything I do as manipulation, right?
Yeah.
It could be seen as, oh, like you're just trying to use me to get to this or trying to do this, and they're like, no, no, if you only knew, like, no, I'm not. I
In
know there are
reality,
some
I'm just
people.
trying to get a job done.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, there are people out there who are like that, and they will use manipulation as a tool to get the job done. But I'm like, I wholeheartedly believe there's most of the time we can get our job done without having to manipulate people. It's not that deep, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even like even like the people I work with, But anyway, I know I more than likely will not be doing anything related to this unless God forbid I'm in a place where I'm like, hey, I'm getting out, but I need something that's gonna get me help me maintain until I can get into the field that I want to, then sure. But as of right now, no, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, so if I would have served in the military, I tried to go in when I was hell, I was 18, 17, 18. I
Hmm.
talked to numerous recruiters. I talked to each branch. Army was willing to take me. Marines said I was too fat. Navy said I was too fat. But Army was willing to take me. They said we'll work all that off of you. But
Yeah.
I just couldn't get past a medical. There was a certain medical exam that I had done when I was like 12, and they found a defect in one of my vertebra.
Oh
And
man.
yeah, so it's just a little tiny, tiny pin size hole in one of my vertebra, but it's labeled in my medical chart. And for whatever reason, they called me out on it. They said, this is a disqualifying factor. We can't have you in. And everything else was good. I had a criminal history at that point. I had uh, fucked off in school. I was, I wasn't the perfect upstanding citizen that they were looking for, and that one thing kept me out. But
Dang.
I was I was recently recruited by the Navy. Not actively recruited. Obviously, I'm not in the Navy, but I was looking into getting my son hooked up with some recruiters, and they were talking to me. Well, you're not too old for the reserves. And now they just opened up the doors for my age group in active duty. So
Yeah.
that same recruiter called me. He's like, "Hey, we just opened up the doors for active duty and this, that, and the other thing." I was like, "Man, I tell you what, I can't physically do it. I couldn't pass MEPS. I'm 39. I've been through hell, and he's like, "Oh, we tone that down for the older people, and this, that, and the other thing." And I was like, "Yeah, that's just what I want to do is go hang out with a bunch of 18, 19-year-old kids, and
Mhm.
stand around with my thumb up my butt while they're running around obstacle courses and then calling me grandpa and stuff. That's not fun."
Oh no. It's funny because we have so many of the older folks when they join, if they join later on in their life, you know, and it's funny, right? So in the military, people are like, "Oh yeah, you're old." You know what I mean? Like they'll be like 100% you're old. You hit 30, you're old. You hit 35, you might as well be a senior citizen,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
most of
you're
these
old enough
kids,
to be those guys' dad at
yeah,
that point.
yeah, exactly. Because most of these kids are 17, 18, 19, 20 years old. And they're like, so for them, that's their life experience, the experience of just, everyday BS, right? Is very minimal to them. They only understand, high school, some even a little bit of college, and that's it. That is it. And so
Yeah.
it's funny to see and to interact with them because so me, right? I'm 29, I'll be 30 in November. But most of the people I work with, or a good portion of them are younger. They're in their 17, 19, or well, I think I got one 20-year-old. I think all of them now are 21. Yeah, anyway, so now like 21 years old, right? And for them even I'm old. They're like, "Oh, you're old." And I'm like, well, how do you think I am? And they're like, well, you're like what, 30, 32, 35? I'm like, wow, I appreciate that, but no, I'm not even 30 yet. And they're like, oh my goodness. I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, it's just life experience. I have been in the army, like I said, for over 10 years now. I've been to a lot of different places. I have a lot of different life experience that has helped me garner the knowledge that I have, but also I became a dad at 23. And so, like my maturity and the way I act is very different. But for these kids, they're like, I couldn't imagine having a kid in like 2 years. You know what I mean? Like they're like, you were 23 when you had your first daughter. Like, oh man, I couldn't imagine. That's 2 years from now being a dad. And I'm like, I good because I don't think you should. I think you should wait on that. I mean, you're
You
not
should
even in a
wait as much
relationship.
as possible.
Yeah, you're not even in a relationship right now. Maybe let's just press pause on that, time out. Try to figure out yourself first. And it's not to deter people because when I tell soldiers that, but then they're like, well, I don't get it. Why are you telling me? It's almost like rules for thee, for not, but not for me, right? Because
Right.
I was the guy who joined, and right out of after basic training, AIT, I asked my girlfriend to marry me, and that's my wife. Right now, I tell them all the time because I have to give them context. It's like, guys, I am different. I said it is very, very different. I said I met my wife when I was in seventh grade.
Yeah.
Also, I started, I started dating my wife in 2011. And so very different, like when I joined the army and I was going through all that, I was going to wait till like 2015. I didn't, and we got married in 2014. But
Yeah.
still, I was like, we had been together for some time before I just up and decided, yeah, I'm just going to get married now, and this is what I'm going to do, and we're just going to have kids. Like, very different. Also, time frame in that life in that period was different. This is high school sweethearts were more normal and more accustomed to getting married and all that. So I was like, however, you have broken up with the girl you knew from high school about 10 times, and you've been with five other different people. I don't think
Yeah.
that you need to reach out to old Lassie over there and say, hey, look, my platoon sergeant did it, so me and you are gonna do it. We're gonna get married and we're gonna be together forever. And I'm like, nah,
Yes.
I don't think it's gonna work that way. I don't think it's gonna work out. I don't think it's gonna work out the way you think it is, right? So I said, I'm different, but I encourage y'all to take your time and to really understand what you're doing because the terminology, like marriage. It doesn't mean what it used to mean. For kids, especially in the military, marriage means I get paid more money.
Yeah.
That's what it's turned into versus marriage means I'm committing myself to another person. And then that commitment comes with we could potentially have kids one day. And
Yeah.
that means we become parents. And if and when we become parents, that means our relationship has to change, meaning we may not be able to give each other that attention that we want all the time because now our focus and our direction needs to be to our kids and helping them and raising them, educating them, putting them, sending them on the right path, hopefully forward. So when they become adults, they're fully functioning adults and capable adults to take care of themselves and whatever the case might be. So it's like there's a lot that goes into it, but then you have to take in consideration, oh yeah, I had to work a full-time job in the army and I have to lead soldiers and I have to do paperwork. I have to learn this, I have to learn that. And I'm like, it's a lot. So you can't just think you're just going to jump right into it and be like, I'm going to be great at it. Cause you know what? It looks easy for him. And it's like, it's not an easy task. It is not an easy task. So
Yeah, and I mean, you work long hours, and not only do you work long hours, but you go home and you spend time with your family, and so that kind of cuts it. A lot of people don't understand, like it's not. We do want to spend time with our families. That's really all we want to do is spend time with our
mhm.
families, spend time with our kids. But also do need a little bit of time for ourselves every day. Like
Yeah.
I like to take out hour or two for myself every day. Like today, it's in the morning time before we had this podcast here. I got up at 7:30 and I was hanging out with my wife all morning long until we came in here to do this podcast, and the kids are still sleeping, and that's great.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't think about that when I don't know how people in the military think about it, but a lot of people don't think about, hey, I'd like to live my life as a young person before I become a father or become a mother. And for me, I don't know any other way because I've been a dad for so long. I started this journey when I was 17. I became a dad first time when I was 17. And then I just grew up, you know.
Yeah.
I I forced myself and I didn't grow up like all at once. It was like over several years it took me to grow up, but like small changes daily, I
Yeah.
become a better person today than I was yesterday kind of thing. And man, I'm super glad that I had my kids at a young age. And you said you had your first daughter at 23, right?
Yep.
So how old are your kids now?
So my
And how many
oldest
do you
is
have?
so I have two daughters. My oldest, she is 6, and my second, she is almost 2. She'll be 2 in October. So it is. I want 2, potentially 3 more. I think I'll do. Talking to my wife, obviously, because I'm not the one actually having the kids. I think I'll do. If we have 2 more, and especially if we have 2 boys, and then adopt the 5th one, I'd totally be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, as of right now, that's where we're at, and we're trying to figure out and navigate is more kids and what that looks like for us. Obviously, finances are a big part of all of this, and so
Oh
it can be
yeah.
very difficult. When we're paying for groceries and diapers and wipes and all these things, and you're like, well, these things are expensive and it doesn't look like they're
Yes.
going down. So like, kind of that area of like, having, do I have more kids or do I not have more kids? But
Oh,
I'd be
don't
more.
let finances stop you, brother. Don't let
Oh
finances
no.
stop you. I'm
Yeah.
telling you what, if I would have waited until I could afford to have kids, I'd never had them. And
You know, no, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
oh, you go ahead.
I was gonna say it's funny because I used to think that way. I was like, oh, I should wait until I can afford to have kids.
Yeah,
And
you'll
then
never
sure
have them.
enough, yeah, and then sure enough, I was like, even before I had kids, I remember there were certain times with just me and my wife, right? And I was lower ranking than I am now, but still, I remember one pay period, we had $4 in our account, and
Yes.
I'm like, okay, I don't have kids now. I'm only paying for me and her, and to do and like gas to get to work, whatever. I was like, I only have $4 in my account. I don't know
Yeah.
how it happened, but that's what I got. You know what I mean? And I don't get paid for another 4 days. I'm like, well then,
Yeah,
and
and you get paid once a month, right?
No, so we get paid on the first and the 15th.
Okay, so
So
it's twice a
yeah,
month.
yeah, twice a month. So it used to be once a month, and then they changed it to first and the 15th, and then it used to be you could change it to getting paid once a month, and some people would do that, but then they got rid of that completely. They were like, no, you will get paid on the first and 15th. And so yeah. But it, you know, financially, like, I'm smarter than I was before. But it doesn't mean that, I've just got all this money sitting around. Now I
Yeah.
do have, I own my house. This is the second house I've owned. So I have to do house projects. Matter of fact, right after this, I got to do a house project because my fence is basically almost on the ground, and I gotta fix my fence. Never fixed a fence before, but I'm gonna figure it out today,
We're gonna
and so
we're gonna figure it out.
exactly, so like that is just one of those things where people are like, oh, well, you got all this money. I'm like, no, I do not. I just, I'm good at hiding that I have all this money, but I don't.
That's
Because
something I did for like with my older kids. I like apparently made things look a little easy.
ah
Not necessarily with my daughter. My daughter does really good, and she's 21. She does really good with finances, and she makes some really smart financial decisions. But my 20-year-old son, boy, he he
money grows
makes
on trees.
yes, and that's exactly how he looks at it. Like he'll get paid today and it'll all be gone by tomorrow. And
Oh man.
he'll be like, "Well, I did this, this, and this, but I got this new shiny thing." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, you got to plan a little bit better than that, you know." And I guess we made it look a little too easy because are able to we're able to do things now that our peers aren't able to do,
Hmm.
but it's not because we have money, it's because we think of money a little differently and we value things a little differently. Like
Oh yeah.
we got a 20-year-old piece of shit car sitting out in the driveway. It leaks oil. It's got no air conditioning. It's a hoopty for lack of a
Yeah.
better word. And we drive that around until we'll drive it until the wheels fall off. We don't care. There's no car payment. No, the insurance is dirt cheap, you know, and we just value things a little bit differently than a lot of people our age. And
Yeah.
that's just how I explain things that like, look, you may value your nice vehicle, whereas I would rather take my kids on vacation. You know, I'd rather
Yeah.
give them an experience. And we don't spend a whole lot of money on Christmas gifts or birthday gifts for that reason as well. We skimp out on those things so we can save a little bit of money to go on vacation and stuff and give them
Yeah.
experiences that we never had because at the end of the day, like think of PlayStation, the newest PlayStation's like still it's like $500.
Oh yeah.
And I don't really have that $500 and that PlayStation's going to eventually break.
Yep.
Whereas if I take my 14-year-old on vacation somewhere and we do something that he'll remember his entire life, those memories are worth way more than that PlayStation will ever be, you know? And
100%.
we just try to think of things that way. And when young people tell me, well, I don't want to have children right now because I don't want to be broke or I just I want to save money and I want to have this first and I want to have this first. And I tell them like, if you wait until you have kids or if you wait until you can afford it to have kids, you'll never be able to afford it because as time goes on, the cost of having kids goes up and up and up,
Yeah.
and it seems like the cost of having kids, outpaces paychecks. But
It
for
does.
me, for me, it's more about just the love and joy of having kids, man. It's hard to explain. Like, how I'm sure you've been irritated or upset or mad at your kids, but then they look at you and with those puppy dog eyes, and you're like, oh, I can't be mad at you, you little shit.
Yeah, you just like all this anger that you had, and you look at them, and one, you see yourself,
Oh
and then
yes, oh
and then
yes,
and then you two, you see you're reminded of their personality of what makes them them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
and you're just kind of like, yeah, you're like, man, you're not an adult. You're not someone who's been walking this earth for 29 years and has all these different experiences and knows what I'm talking about. Some of the things I say you're hearing for the very first time, and so it's
Yeah.
probably confusing and it's hard to understand. And I'm like, oh, gosh, all right, all right, all right. This is my fault. This is my fault putting my level of expectations, my 29 years of experience of expectations on you, when in reality, I'm forgetting you only have six.
Yeah.
And out of that six, has it been a happy experience? Has it been a joyful experience? Or has it been a, man, this seems a little rough at times. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it can be defeating at times. And so yeah, I love being a father. I love, I tell people when I was 16, everybody, at that point where as you get older, you're stepping more into adolescence, and then almost to the point where you can consider yourself an adult. And when I was 16, I said to myself, I want to be a dad. Now, at 16, you can't tell your friends or tell other people that you want to be a dad because
Yeah. And you
it's not
definitely
like I
can't
don't.
tell your parents.
Yeah, you can definitely get. Yeah, don't tell people that because I don't think it's a good idea because definitely will think that's a right now thing, or that's a next, you're working on it right now type of thing. You know what I mean? Like they're like, no, 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 that's not what I mean, right? But so definitely kept to myself, but I knew I was like, I want to be a dad. And so, you know, um, ended up, like I said, joining the military, getting married, and then me and my wife were like, she was talking about having kids. So I was in Afghanistan in 2016 to 17. And so she was like, while I was gone, she was like, yeah, hey, she goes, I want to, when you get back, I want to have kids. And I was like, well, I mean, I don't know, like I want to like just kind of go like do things, and like, cause I wanted to do the young person thing. I wanted a chance to
Yeah.
do the young person thing because at that point I had just turned, when she started talking about it, I had just turned 22, and I spent my birthday in Afghanistan. I spent Christmas in Afghanistan. And so like I remember she's talking about it, and I'm just like, I come home in February, and I'm like, I don't know. Like I wanted like I've been in this desert for some time. I'm ready to come home and just kind of like chill out, have a good time, do the young person thing. Because talking to my friends, I had realized that I had matured and grown up past them. And it's
Oh
hard.
boy.
It's
Yes.
hard when you do that because your friends look at it as you think you're better than them. When you're just
Yeah.
like, this is just who I am now. Like I've grown and I don't know any other way to be. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like my experiences up to this point has taught me that this is the person that I need to be right now in order for me to be successful, whether it's in my job, whether it's in my relationship or in my personal life. Now, to my friends, they had fortunately, I wouldn't say unfortunately, but fortunate for them, they had not been put in those positions where they had to grow up really fast. And
Yeah.
so they had the ability and the opportunity to still be young and still do things as if there were no consequences to them at all. But me, I was like, no, like there are consequences to everything you do, negative or positive. And so like I have to think about the consequences of my actions rather than just doing the action because it makes me feel good in that moment. And so I'll give you an example. I came home. What ended up coming home? I came home on Valentine's Day. Great day to come back. And so, came home from Afghanistan on Valentine's Day. Hung out with the wife, and then about a couple weeks later, we go to New Orleans because I'm a huge New Orleans Saints fan. And
Go
it was
Saints.
great. Yeah, who that nation. So like, we went to New Orleans, had the whole shebang out there, had a great time, came back, went to Arizona, where I'm from, and I'm hanging out with my friends. And while hanging out with them, I immediately felt, I was like, oh, there's a difference. There's a change. And I didn't know the
Yeah.
change was coming from me, but I just knew there was a change. For example, our conversations weren't the same. They were still talking about their relationships with, such and
Yeah.
such, or how they were breaking
Yeah,
up with
here
such
you
and
guys
such.
are over here talking about the same things we were talking about 5 years ago. I want to talk about something completely different. Let's switch gears here. Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, and like your priorities, my priorities in my life had changed. They had changed drastically. And so like, you know, I had I had lost a friend when I was deployed. And he had four kids, and he had a newborn, and who was made up his fourth child, and we went to the same church together. And I like I said, unfortunately, didn't make it back, right? And so my perspective had changed. What was important to me had changed. The idea of family had grown and drastically changed for me. But to sit here and hear my friends talking about this girl and that girl, and then how their family and their parents are annoying, and how for some of them they were still living with their parents, and I'm over here like I have my own house. I don't understand. I just don't
Yeah.
understand that this idea what you're talking about. And for them, the belief that going to college and having an education through in college made you a better person or made you a smarter person. And I was just like, I guess I just at the moment I just didn't care about those things. I'm like, like
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all know this or not, but there are people out there in this world that are going through so much. And the idea of just going to college and figuring out what you're going to do that night on a Tuesday night or on a Wednesday night or whatever with your friends as if there's no care in the world, that's not the rest. Some of the world doesn't have the luxury of doing that. And when you realize that, when you see that, you're like, what? Why would I? Who cares? Why don't we just hang out, man? Why don't we just
Yes.
enjoy the moment now and not so worry about what people are going to think about us or what we're going to do in tomorrow or this tonight, and if we're going to, get drunk and do all these things. I mean? Just like again, priorities had changed, and it was so
Yeah.
hard for me because I'm sitting there listening to these conversations in my head. I'm like, I don't care, I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. That's stupid. That's
Yes.
really dumb. Why do you care about that? Why do you care
Yes.
about what such and such thinks of you? Who cares? They're
Yes.
they're not here. Who cares?
It's
What?
very interesting that we speak about this now because I was just talking about it a couple days ago. I was
Mhm.
just talking about and I was speaking with my brother who's been on the podcast before, and I'm sure he'll watch this. But I was talking about it like I've outgrown my friends. That's how I like my childhood friends, I've outgrown them. It's not that they're bad people um or even I don't know how to put it. They're not irresponsible. They're not bad people or anything. We're just different. We've grown apart over the years where my experiences have taken me one way and their
Yeah.
experiences have taken them another way. Now, I've got friends I went to high school with that call me rich because of the grocery store that I shop at. And I'm like, no, I'm not rich. It's just they have the kind of chips that I like at this store. And
Right.
I only go to this store for the chips. And I'm getting the chips and I'm out of there. And it's just like talking about cars and stuff. Like I value things a lot differently than my friends do. And whereas you said you knew you wanted to be a father at 16 years old. And at 16 years old, most of your peers are not thinking about kids. They're trying to think
Nope.
about how to prevent kids, not have them.
Hmm.
And I totally that resonates with me because sitting around with a group of what used to be my friends, I realized they're no longer friends, they're more of acquaintances. And that was
Yeah.
an old chapter of my life that I need to move on to a new chapter. And that's very interesting that like we had discussed you being on the podcast like a week ago. And then
Hmm.
a couple of days later, I was having this conversation with someone. And then today we're having this conversation on the podcast. It's very wild. But yeah, I totally identify with everything you just said, man. I find that it's very hard for me to talk to a group of friends my age group because I've like being a stay-at-home dad for the last 10 years gives me a lot of time to study on things, research things I'm interested in.
Hmm.
Geopolitics is really prevalent in my life now versus 10 years ago. I wouldn't have gave a shit what was going on in Ukraine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's wild that how that happens. But man, that's you talking about deployments in Afghanistan. Have you done any other deployments other than Afghanistan?
Yeah. So Afghanistan's like really my only real combat deployment. I've been to Kuwait. I was in Kuwait with the Marines, and they had some guys in Iraq, and we would kind of switch back and forth to go to Iraq for whether for a week or so or whatever. But then those are as far as combat goes, the combat deployments, if you will, those are the only places that I've been. Kuwait's not a combat zone anymore,
Right, right.
obviously, but yeah. But I mean, I've been to other countries, so I've been to Germany, I've been to Poland, I've been
Oh,
to,
yes, that's where I was wanting to go next. Is all the cool places that you've been? Because I know combat deployments are, like sometimes depending on what you're doing, probably kind of boring. So
in a way, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
You get very
so on combat deployments, it's just work 24/7, right?
more or less, yeah. Like
Yeah,
you're just working, and it's crazy because it's a real opportunity where you get into a schedule where it just rinse, wash, and repeat. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
when I was in Afghanistan, and this schedule is going to sound crazy. So I would wake up at 8:45 every day. And I would, literally, I'd get into my uniform. I'd brush my teeth right outside my door, and because you just use water bottles. There's no like, don't drink any of the water out there. It's only drink out of water bottles. And use a water bottle, brush my teeth right outside my door, get changed, go to the bathroom, and where I slept at to where I worked at, it was almost like being a like during COVID where everybody works from home and you're just walking to your office from your bedroom, So that's kind of like what it was. My office was literally 50 feet from my where I slept. So I literally walk out one door and walk 50 feet, walk into another door, and boom, I'm in the office. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so we would work, and then we would finish work around 6 o'clock, and
yeah,
the rest of the time, if you will, was personal time. I
yeah.
didn't
But
go to the
what kind of
gym.
personal time are you going to have on an operating base?
Right, you know what I'm saying? Like you're just there's it's personal time. You're calling or texting people or whatever because we got these
You
little
can go
pups that have
outside and look
internet.
at the sand.
Oh yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Smoking cigars became a thing we did often. I would work out like at like 10 o'clock to midnight. I'd be trying to do schoolwork, and then I talk to my wife, and then go to bed at around like 1, 2 o'clock, and then do rinse repeat, do it all over again. And like that was my schedule, and I loved that schedule. Like
Yeah,
I was working out all the time. I was literally in school. I was doing my job. Yeah, okay, sirens are going off because there's some rockets coming in. Everybody get, all right, wait, cool. Didn't hit us. Cool. Right back to work. You know what I mean? And you just kind of
yeah,
move, like I said, you just move on, and that's just kind of what the schedule was. And so it was easier. And then you just worked, and then like working, you didn't have any concerns of like any of like your family was in danger. You're just like, I'm here to do a job. I'm going to do it, and we're going to do
yeah.
it until they tell me I can't do it anymore. Which is I have about 90 more days. Cool. Sounds good. We're
Yes.
about to keep doing it. So, and that's what it was. So,
Very task oriented, very,
hmm
yeah, I could see that. And I could also see how life on a military base might be kind of, especially a forward operating base, might be kind
hmm
of boring,
it
like
is.
then you get into this groove where you're comfortable in your routine, you're comfortable in your schedule, and then it's time to ship out.
Yeah, I was very
Yeah.
fortunate that I got to travel around, and I say travel, but like I would go to different bases because I worked I worked on the staff for the general essentially. So I was doing paperwork. I was a 42 Alpha, which is human resources. So I was doing HR, meaning the HR, my team, if you will, we work for directly for the general. And so we would go to different fobs, check on our other S1 teams and see how they're doing, if they need any assistance from us, if we can, whatever the case might be. So I was very fortunate. I could go to different fobs, and I would stay there for a few days and experience their fob, what they were going through, and kind of get build that relationship, whatever the case might be. So, I've been over did a few different decent places around Afghanistan, if you will. But still, nonetheless, I like traveling and then come back, and then you're like, all right, cool. I'm just ready to go home as soon as we can, So,
Absolutely. So you'd mentioned visited Germany, you'd visited Poland and stuff like that.
yeah.
Were you visiting with the military?
Yeah, so I was so I went to we went to Germany. I stayed in Germany for about 2 weeks, which was pretty cool. I've to get to kind of see that, and then I went
Did you get
to
time off in Germany?
yeah. So when we landed there, because we were going to Poland, and so we landed in Germany, and then we bused to Poland, but I was just we got to do some experience around and walk around, you will, and we went to a mall and whatever. So it was pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
And to see the little bit of the city life of Germany and the people within Germany and whatever. So that was pretty cool. And driving around in Germany, that was pretty cool as well. A different experience. They were like, "Hey, you want to drive?" And I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm totally good."
That would have been
Uh,
me. I would have, they would have asked me, "Hey, do you want to drive?" And nope.
yeah,
Nope.
like, hey, that's
I've been
experience
in
for somebody
enough
else.
accidents in the United States. I don't need to be one here.
Yeah, I was definitely like, that's an experience for someone else. I need to get my bearings. I need to see around me before I just hop in the driver's seat and be like, I guess we're gonna figure it out. Like, nah,
Now, if
if I
they
have
asked me if
to.
I wanted to fly a plane, I would have been like, yes, yes, I would like to fly a plane. Not now, I'm not a pilot or anything like that. And I don't know how to fly, but yeah, I'd absolutely do that.
Right. And so it was different. But then we went to Poland, and then I spent a few months in Poland, and Poland was cool and different as well. Like, and it was just a different experience all around. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just a different experience all around. And it was pretty cool to kind of be in Poland and seeing how they what their lifestyles are like, their day-to-day lives and their little towns and whatnot. So, and meeting different people. So it was cool. It was all pretty cool. I enjoyed Poland. I enjoyed Germany, and whatnot. So definitely
Yeah,
a different experience.
I've actually like had several conversations with my wife about I'd like to visit Germany, Poland. Well, like a lot of the World War II
Hmm.
historical sites. I would love to do kind of a throwback World War II historical tour of Europe. I
Yeah.
would love to do that. And it's I'd like to say it's on the bucket list, but it's like I'm definitely doing it soon, like within the next couple of years soon. I don't know if I'll have to do it by myself. Hopefully I'll get to take my wife with me,
Hmm.
but as long as there's not any widespread conflict in Europe, I'm hoping to make it happen in the next couple of years or so. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I love the fact that you got to like the fact that you got to hang out in those places and your job took you there. And it's,
Hmm.
you didn't have to, not that saying that you didn't buy things or didn't pay for things there, but you didn't have to pay what I would have to pay to go do experience those things. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. And
Yeah.
so what have you taken your wife anywhere?
No. So every time I have the opportunity to move, I'm like, hey, the first place I say is like, hey, let's go to Europe, let's go to Germany. We can I can be stationed in Germany. I think we actually have a base in Poland now too, and like I can be stationed over there. So like I'm like, hey, like let's go overseas. But right when I was getting was pretty serious about it, it's COVID, and so
Yeah.
I was actually in Poland when COVID became like the pandemic, if you will. So we get to Poland February 28th, 28th or 29th, right? I think it was 28th. We get to Poland February
Yeah, and
28th.
that's when it
Uh,
was right just breaking out.
yeah, 2 weeks later, it's official. COVID's the pandemic.
Yeah.
Everything's shutting down. The whole world's shutting down. People are trying to get back to the States. And they're like, nope, can't get back to the States. We don't know what's going on. We're pausing everything. You know what I mean? And so we were like in this weird place of like, what are we doing? Are we going back home? Can we get back home? How are we going to do this? Like, what's going on? Are we still moving forward with our operation? Like, like just a crazy idea, like trying to figure out all the things as what was going to happen. But my wife was going through this whole different experience back home where everything was for sure shut down. And she's like, I can't go to the store. I can't go anywhere. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm going to the gas station every day to go get
Yeah.
to get food or to go get gas. We're still like traveling around, and like I tell people all the time in Poland when COVID was happening, it was like it was everybody else's problem except Poland's, because like they were not,
Yeah.
there was not like a, there was not like a, there was for maybe like 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe, but like
Yeah.
after that it was just kind of like, yeah, we're not going to do that. We're not just going to sit in our homes. We're going to go out. Like they still had a nightlife. The Poland still had a nightlife and doing all these things. And so like when my wife hears that, I'm like, she's like, "What do you mean you're staying up until like 5 o'clock in the morning?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, we went out."
Yeah.
Like like she's like, "I can't even go out," and I'm like, "Oh, well,
And then you say things like, "Well, babe, I don't know if you know this, but like I'm in Poland. Like I'm
yeah."
not there."
Like I was like, well, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm still driving around. Like, yeah, we might have to walk into this place, and you get the feel of it. You have your mask around your chin, and then they're like, if everybody has their mask on, then you're like, okay, we put my mask on, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah,
If no one else
that's
has
that
their
kind
mask
of
on, then you're good. You move on. So
that's kind of what it was like traveling to Florida from here.
yeah.
So in Florida, we went to Universal Studios in 21,
Mhm.
and we were still in the middle of lockdowns and stuff like that. We were dealing with a lot of stuff, but Florida was wide open.
Yeah.
And well, we went to Universal Studios, and that's how it was there. Like you gauged what you should do based on what the crowd was doing. If everybody else was wearing their mask, you just go ahead and put it on or whatever. But most of the time, like, and we didn't get COVID there. We actually got COVID around Christmas time, and I don't even know how we got it in 22. And so anyway, we didn't get COVID. There was not a big outbreak of COVID while we were there. And I checked the news a couple times after we came home. Not a big outbreak after we came home. But yeah, dealing with COVID here it was, well, you're in the military, so you know, like all our basic rights and stuff. Like
Yeah.
it was a madhouse here. It wasn't like anything that I've ever seen before. And
Yeah.
it was wild. It was a wild time to be alive. I went to California during that whole
Oh,
thing,
terrible.
and that was it. It was like I can't. It was like going to a different country. That's what it felt like. It did
Yeah.
not feel like the United States, and it didn't. It didn't even feel like California. I had been there one other time before, to
Mhm.
San Diego. Now I went to San Francisco the second time, but
Yeah.
it didn't even feel like California. There weren't people on the street. There was nobody at restaurants. There was nobody at the stores. You know, like when we went to California during COVID, it was a whole different experience because it was like we were on our own. It was
Yeah.
wild.
And that, there was a lot of fear spread throughout when COVID, and I know you know this, but it was just a lot of. I felt like it was just a lot of selling this idea of fear of like you walk out your door,
Yeah.
you could die, but as
Yeah.
if that fear wasn't there or shouldn't have been there before, because that's
Yeah.
like we're not guaranteed tomorrow anyway. Like I could go to work on Monday, and it doesn't mean I'm going to come back on Monday. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
Like
there's
I
lots of
car
Boeing
accidents, other
issues.
things, so
There's
yeah,
lots
like
of Boeing issues. A jet plane can land on my house, you know?
yeah, like we never know, but everybody, it was almost like because of what the news was saying, fear the unknown, when you should have been fearing the unknown this entire time. But
Yeah.
now it was at the forefront of our minds. It was like, no, no, now this fear is actually real and it's evident. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do any of these things. And so it was just scary. It was a scary time for everybody. Like, I don't get me wrong. I tell people all the time, like, I'm aware that there are people that died, and that's unfortunate. I really do feel for those individuals, those families that lost people and whatever the case might
But
be.
we have to live.
Yeah. Like,
We have to live.
yeah, we have to, like, you cannot, it's hard, and it's so many people are hard when you try to rationalize with them. It's like, hey, don't get me wrong. I feel for those individuals, right? I feel for those families. However, that does not mean that we stop living and we stop doing what is necessary for our lives and whatever that looks like, and society as a whole, we stop moving because others are dying, because people die every single day. It's just
Yeah.
a matter of, do you know them? Do you know them? Are you aware of them? Or is it something that could happen to anybody? You know what I mean? Like, people
Yeah.
die every day. And if so, you're older than I am. And so for it, and I say that just to kind of provide context, but
Oh no, go ahead, but it's
you know,
fine.
if you go back, right, when the news, and I would say, even I was born in 94, but still, like, even in the 90s and in the early 2000s, right? When you go on the news and you watch the news, there was more good, it seemed, than there was bad. But after 9/11, I think it kind of derailed into the more of the bad. But still, there was more. You could turn on the news and you could see these happy stories, these good things happening around the world, or even in your neighborhood or where you lived in the United
Yeah.
States. And then you might see some bad things. You're like, man, that's really tragic. But hey, man, look, we got to put a smile on. We got to go to work, handle our business, take care of our families. And if we can help it, if we can help people, we can. If we can't, we will do our best next time, and we just keep moving forward. But now you turn on the news and everything is just negative, 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 negative.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everybody, it's to the point where people don't want to help people because they're afraid that the person next to them, or their neighbor, the person at the supermarket, whatever, the store, the wherever they're going, could be the person that wants to hurt them, or could lead
Yeah.
to them being hurt, or whatever the case might be. When it's like, no, we were not meant to live in a world where we fear everybody, right? You
Yes.
like it's we be on your guard, 100%. Be on your guard. You know what I'm saying? But it's not to say, like, there are people out there who are probably think just as much similar as you do. Like, hey, I just want to come to the store. I
Yeah.
just want to go to the store. I just want to, if I meet new people, I want to greet new people. Hey, how's it going? It's fun. It's great, right? But society has changed, and while I sit here and I say I wish I could go back, right? The reality is it's going to continue to change, and we can either sit there and live in the past, or we can accept the change and try to continue to fit in the best as we can, if you will, with where society is going, right? It doesn't mean we have to follow all of societal norms. It just means we just
Yeah.
have to, try to figure out where our puzzle piece fits in within the bigger puzzle. You know what I mean? So
Exactly. Exactly. I totally, totally agree. And you were talking about age. I had a thought as you were speaking about uh age, and you said you had mentioned 9/11. Do you even remember 9/11?
I do. So
So it's like you
and
were like 5 or 6, right?
yeah. So the
Yeah.
only reason, and yeah, but I would say the biggest reason, the only reason I remember 9/11, my dad's a pilot, and so
Yeah.
um uh I when I tell this story, it's comical in a way, but obviously what happened is not comical, but comical in a way for me, because I was still super young, and for so people,
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
do you really remember?" You just make saying that because you want to fit in. I was like, "No, I can tell you my exact morning of what happened of 9/11." So, me and my brother, we used to wake up. So I have a twin brother, and so we wake up and we watch top 100 videos on
Yep.
MTV. And by the time we woke up and we were getting ready for school, we would be at the top 25. So
Yep.
like the top 25 were like the best of the best videos out of the 100, obviously. So like we were geared for it. We woke up, normal morning for us, turn on TV, and all that you see on every single channel is this plane hitting this building. Now, at the age, I'm not understanding what's going on. I'm not understanding why it's on every channel. I'm flipping the channel. Same thing, same thing, same thing. I'm thinking the TV's broken. I'm like, yo, bro, the TV's broken. All that's going on right now is this plane hitting a building. Like, not, and I'm saying it loud as if this has happened before, when it hasn't, right?
Yeah.
And so at this point, we 10 minutes go by, and it's just like, I was like, I don't know what's going on. This is not working. So like, all right, whatever. We were living in Vegas at the time. So we get ready, we go downstairs. As I'm coming down the stairs, opening our door, and this is for the first time what we realize, my dad is yelling at the TV. My mom is in tears. And I'm just like, what the heck is going on? I'm like,
Right.
are they getting it? Did they argue, man? Like, what's going on? So we go downstairs, look at the TV, and the same thing that was on our TV was on the TV downstairs, and the plane hitting the building. And I was just like, what the heck is going on? And so we're not knowing for sure what's going on, why this is important, why this is significant. We go to school. We're there for an hour,
Yeah.
maybe, and then we come back home. But I always remember my dad is furious, just yelling at the TV, almost like when you see football fans yelling at the TV like
Yeah.
as if they're coaching from the TV, you know what I'm saying? But like just angry because he himself is a pilot and he, and just upset, not knowing how to, to believe what's going on. And
Yeah.
so fast forward to, 5, 6 years later, finally understanding or really understanding, oh, that's what was the significance of that day. That's what that meant. That's what was going on. The correlation between why, next thing you know, George was talking about going to Iraq and we're in Afghanistan and all these things and soldiers and then, and what's going on, right? Like again, not realizing those had correlations to each other, but then as of now, I'm like very clear of like what happened and how it happened. So yes,
Yeah.
I do remember 9/11. It was a crazy day for all of us, and I realized the part that we kept seeing because we were in Vegas was it was when the second plane hit. So
Yeah.
it was when the second plane hit. I tell people, I remember sitting there watching the TV, not really understanding what's going on, but seeing people jumping out of the building, jumping
Yeah.
off the building, and I'm just like, yo, like, is this a TV show? Like, why are these people jumping
Yeah.
out of the
I was
jumping off
gonna
a building?
say,
Like
I'm sure at that age it was like somewhat similar to watching a movie.
yeah, I'm like you're just kind of like, oh, like they're getting the and then not just one, it was several, and
Yeah.
and then you're seeing the buildings fall and you're seeing the all the dust, right? And all these people filled with dust and all the from the buildings, and you're just like, it seemed like a distant land, you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
was like, oh, like this is just a fake place and this is not really happening. Like you just couldn't understand or couldn't fathom it for as a when I was that age. So but yeah, I remember all those things. And, sometimes I wish I would be able to forget some of those things. But yeah,
Yeah.
I remember all those things, because now, it lives with me where you remember seeing individuals, human beings jumping out of a building because they're
Yeah.
like, hey, there's nothing else I can do. I can either stay here and be here when the building goes down and hopefully it's quick and potentially live, or I could make sure that, I go out and it's painless. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing that I remember the most vividly about uh, the news coverage of that day, what I remember the most vividly was obviously the plane hitting,
mhm.
the towers falling, but the thing that really sticks out in my memory, and I'm kind of getting emotional thinking about it, is the people on the ground.
Yeah,
Everybody was covered in dust and blood, and it looked like black and white photos.
yeah,
But I'm sure you've seen those retouched old timey photos
yep,
where they've got a little bit of color in some spots, but the rest of them are black and white.
yeah,
That's kind of what it looked like. Was I could see the people walking around in a daze, and then spots of blood here and there that were color, but the rest of everything looked black and white. It was nuts, and that's pretty wild that you remember that at such a young age. And I'm sure it has a lot to do with your father being a pilot, actually, because
yeah,
that plane hitting, and
yeah,
and of course with everybody talking about it the days and months and weeks after, uh, uh, that's that's pretty awesome. And not awesome as in a good way or a oh that's awesome type of thing, but it's very awesome in the fact that you are old enough to remember that you went in and fought with in that conflict. Like, I mean, you were 5 years old when that conflict started,
hmm
and you were deployed in Afghanistan. And again, thank you for your service.
Oh,
It's
thank you for your support. I appreciate it.
and intelligence is a really important job right now. Like, it's totally different now than what it
Hmm.
was even 20 years ago, but
Yeah,
it's totally different now than it was 50, 60 years ago. Intelligence is a whole different animal. Like, it's so much harder now than it used to be because the internet and phones and
yeah,
all the I mean, if you're trying to nail down a conversation between two people, and you know one of those, you know who one of those people is. It could take you 6 months to track down that conversation, you know,
Yeah.
and that's pretty wild. It's not as easy as it once was. And I think that as I was talking to you and you were responding back with the, you know, talking about how old you were and it's just it's mind blowing that we have a lot of the same view of what happened, and like we're 10 years apart in age. And
Yeah.
you know, you were in Vegas, I was in Missouri, and it's it's one thing that brought us together. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
we
It
remember that we were in the same spot in the same moment, looking at the same thing, and it's that's pretty wild to think about.
it's insane because, I'll talk to soldiers now. And like I said, they're younger. They're the 19 to 20-year olds, right? And it's kind of like, hey, like, I was like, how did you hear about 9/11? And they're like, oh, in my history book, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, geez. All right. Well, whoo, all right. Like, so it's like in a weird way, it was how, learning about Pearl Harbor, what it was for me was learning when I learned about Pearl Harbor, that was like this was the thing that was in the history books that I just that
Yeah.
we learned about and what happened, you know, versus now where, I have people, soldiers who are like, oh yeah, I've read about 9/11 in the history books. And now, like, kind of like they told us what happened, not even realizing some of their teachers knew or know of somebody that lost somebody during 9/11, or they were alive during that time, so they remember what it was like, in that feeling of anger, or the feeling of whatever it was they were feeling at the time, sadness, that as they're teaching them this. So when I tell the soldiers, like, I was like, I would say five to now, maybe even now, because I forget, sometimes I forget how long I've been in. So I would say 2019, 20, I would say, is that's when people were no longer joining for because of you know what happened, something that happened to the United States and America that's
Yeah.
still impacting us today. It became more of they were joining because they had nothing else to do. They were told, like, hey, the military is a good thing to start, good place to start. And they're, whatever the case might be. So then deployments to Afghanistan, even though in 2021 was when we officially pulled out, but, like, deployments to Afghanistan, they might have gone, but they don't understand why some of their senior leaders still had such a strong passionate feelings behind whether going or not going, or whatever the case might be. And so I talk to soldiers now, and, I'm not saying, hey, the reason I stay in is because of 9/11. No, that's not
Yeah.
the case at all, right? But I tell them, I'm like, listen, there are people who have been in who are for a very long time, and they know and they remember that day, and for them, that's
Yeah.
their why. That was their why. And I said, now, it doesn't make it any better. You go over there and they've lost friends, and then you got these younger soldiers who talk about going to Afghanistan or Iraq is just like, oh, I can't wait to get the badge of honor to say that I've done it. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Yeah.
no, it's not a I don't recommend it to anybody. I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want that on anybody, right?
Yeah.
But some of them want it just so they can say they did it, and it's like, I need you to reframe your mind a little bit to
Yeah,
understand.
be like, fellas, I was over there. There's nothing nice about it.
Yeah, like I tell people, I was like, the first 3 months there were the hardest 3 months of my life.
Yeah.
And they were hardest 3 months of my life because we landed in Afghanistan at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I remember getting
Ooh.
off the plane. Yep. Dark, hot still. I remember getting off the plane, and the very first thing you do when you get off the plane, everyone, it's called a duffel bag drag, meaning if you get all your bags and you're dragging your duffel bag, because your duffel bag has everything in it, right? And it's heavy. You just
It's
drag,
like
so it turns into
150 pounds. Yeah.
right, it turns into a drag because you're not going to carry that on your shoulder anymore. You know what I mean? So you're dragging your duffel bag, if you will, to the spot, and you load it and they throw it into a pile. And then the first thing you do is everyone gets the same brief. And this brief it tells you about what the sirens, different sirens mean, different codes, like, Bravo means this, Alpha means this, whatever, like, and all these things,
Right.
and you get the same brief. And the main part of that brief is, hey guys, we get rockets shot at us. If rockets are shot, you'll hear the siren that says incoming, 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 and then the rocket will hit. Here on Bagram, because we landed in Bagram, they had C-rams. They're like, if you'll hear the C-rams. Don't be afraid if you hear the C-ram, or don't get too scared if you hear the C-rams, right? Because that means they're shooting down the
Yeah, that
rockets or
means they're
whatever.
working. Yeah.
Right. You're like, hey, seek cover, seek shelter. If you're not around shelter, lay on the ground. Imagine being told, hey, if you're not around shelter, just lay on the ground. And you're like, okay, I guess.
So make yourself small.
What I'm saying? Yeah, exactly. And like it's kind of like those old videos that you would see during the Cold War where they're like, hey guys, get under your desk. Yeah. And you're like, what is that
Brother,
gonna
I
do?
remember that. I
What is
actually remember the duck and cover drills for
yeah,
the during the Cold War, and like it didn't just stop in 1991.
yeah.
It continued for a few years after. Like I don't want to say a few years, but like I think I was in the second grade. So
Hmm.
it's when I did my last one. So 92-ish, 93. So a year or two after 1991, they continued all that. So at
Yeah.
least here anyway, where
Yeah.
I live. But yeah,
And that
that was freaking crazy. Yeah.
and that's the thing. And so like I tell soldiers, I was like, listen, I get it. You join the military and part of it is being able to say that you've done something.
Yeah.
But don't get too eager to say that you've done something and going to do something and not being able to come back. That
Yeah.
is that is the reality of what it is. Now, don't get me wrong. You join the military. You have to understand what organization you joined as much as you can. All right,
Yeah.
because you don't know what you don't know, but still do your best to do your homework and understand what the purpose of an army is, what the purpose of a military is, because at any given time, the United States government can say, "Hey, you're going here," and I can't sit look at them and say, "No, I'm not." I have
Yes.
to say, "Yep, cool."
You're contractually obligated.
Yes, and they don't soldiers now don't understand what that means. They think they can say no to a lot of things. And I'm like, oh, man, to be a young. So, but
Yeah.
no,
There's still a lot of people out there that think you can pick your MOS.
yeah, well, so like in the army, you more or less you can. But here's the thing: what I tell people, I was like, it has to be available.
You gotta get a score. You gotta get a good score to dictate that MOS though.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
it has to be one, you have to score high enough. Two, it has to be available. If that MOS is not available, regardless of the score that you got, guess what you're not going to do? The job that you want to do.
Yeah, it's like there's so many jobs that like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna go do that. Well, like 100,000 other guys said the same thing. So
Yeah.
like,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
And like people joining, I'm like, listen, there are so many jobs you can do in the military, and you only know about a select few because that's the kind of the stuff that they push out of what the job to do. I was like, that being said, what is it that interests you? What is it that you want to do? And even when you join, I tell them all the time, like, you can change your job, right? Like you can change your job. And some of them are like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm like, yeah, like you can change your job, but what is it you want to do? Right. Like, cause you're upset now because you chose, I don't know, to be a cook, or you chose to be a human resources, or you chose to be a 88 Mike with a truck driver, right? Like you're upset with your job. Okay. But what are you going to do to change it? You can change it now. Like you have a better understanding of the army. You can change it. So I don't know. It's different. It's very different. But the younger people, they're younger, and this comes with the territory and trying to helping them. But I remember when I was younger and I didn't want to listen to anybody because I thought I was a grown man, and so I was like, no, I got it all
I'm
figured
still
out.
like that.
And I'm like, in a lot of different things, I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm good. I thank you, but I'm good. But in some ways, I'm like, I've kind of learned a lot where I'm like, actually, what did you say I should do? Cool, I'm probably gonna do that. So,
When was your last deployment?
um, was Kuwait in 2022 with the Marines. So it's called we call it YS. It's individual point. You deploy as an individual, on an individual tasker to go support somebody else. This time I didn't know it was to support the Marines, which is pretty cool because that opportunity within itself is few and far in between. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like
And
cross
so
training and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So like when I went out there and we were supporting the Marines and their guys in Iraq and helping them out, and so that was pretty cool to interact with Marines. We didn't get along. I'll be very frank with you. The lieutenant and I didn't get along, and here's
Imagine that.
yeah,
Imagine
right.
that.
I it was hard to it was hard because he was in charge, I would tell him, I was like, hey, you are in charge, but like I have more experience than you in everything, like everything, in the job, in the military, and leadership, and so it's hard when I'm trying to when you say something and then I disagree with what you say and I counter that, and rather than listen or take or try to have a conversation with me about where my concern lies, you say, well, no, this is what we're going to do. So I remember I told him one time, hey, sir, you are the commander. You are in charge. We will follow your orders as you give them to us. He goes, yeah, I know that. You don't have to tell me that. I said, Roger that, sir. He goes, but I'm asking your opinion. I said, no, 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 sir. What you want is for you to be valid. You want me to validate you, and you want me to acknowledge what you said to be correct and right, and it's a great idea. And I said, I cannot do that. If you want me to do that, uh, give me a direct order to do so, and I will. However, understand I have given you my recommendations. I have given you my thoughts on what you're doing, and you have not been able to explain anything past that. So therefore, in lieu of safety of soldiers and of your Marines, and especially, this is my recommendation. Right. And it turned out because he didn't want to communicate the entirety of the plan or what was going on, there was a disconnect, and that was what a
Yeah.
disconnect was. And it was like, hey, if you communicate with me, I'm here to help you. I am here to help you, but I can't help you if you only give me part of the information. You can only give me part of the information, and then we're coming into a point of conflict where it's like, hey, like, this is a bad idea because you're only giving me certain facts. And when all reality is, if you give me the full picture, oh, that's a great idea. Everything's
Yeah.
fine. We're good to go. But you're not giving that to me. And then it's like, oh yeah, I should have told you that. Yeah, effective communication. What a great thing. What a great thing. I'm like,
And this is actually the reason why they put you guys together in the first place, is so you guys can butt heads like that and then learn to work together. Because man, today's battlefield is a lot different than I mean, today's battlefield is actually a lot different than it was 10 years ago.
yeah,
It's insane, the amount of technology that they're using on the battlefield now, and it's autonomous. A lot of it's autonomous now.
yeah,
Like you don't have to do anything. Your equipment is all talking to each other and giving you recommendations, and it's, man, it's really really cool stuff that they have nowadays. But it's still, it boils down to everybody has to work together. Everybody has a job, and
hmm,
like you were saying with your lieutenant, it's, we will do what you tell us to do. Just don't tell us to do the wrong thing. Like,
yeah,
this is my suggestion, and like, you're not following along with my suggestion. I don't know if you're not understanding, or it's, but you did it with professionalism. And
yeah.
were you guys able to successfully complete your mission, or?
Yeah, so we were able to complete. I mean, towards in the end of it, we had an understanding that we weren't fond of each other. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't like that. I don't, I left, and after a few months, I truthfully, I think back to, even right now, I think back to it, and I was like, I had a lot of respect for him. I had a lot of respect for the Marines, and we may have disagreed on a lot of things, but that was professional, right? There was no,
Yeah.
I in the moment, I was taking it personally, but and I might have been making it personal, but it was by no means a personal thing. It was a professional thing, and as professionals, we can disagree. That's okay. It's just
Yeah.
about how do we move forward. And so now when I think about it, I think about it like, man, those were a great group of guys. And I didn't meet all of them because the rest of them were in Iraq. But they were a great group of guys. They were very intelligent. They were very capable young group of guys, and they had been together since the beginning for them as training. So they were able to. That's where their relationship and their bond. That's what they had, and they were able to communicate with each other and understand a lot of things of, hey, if they said I'm going to do A B, then that person, because they worked together for so long, knew what came with A, B. And so they were like, okay, I'm going to do C, D, and E, and we're all on the same page. But me not
Yeah.
working with them, I'm like, hey, now I want to understand what everybody's doing, what everybody's role is. because I'm trying to understand, but you guys are not, because of the lack of communication in a lot of ways, I'm not understanding. So there's now pushback, right? And now I'm being pushed back. And it just seems like I'm pushing back because I don't want to do my job. When the reality is, no, I would love to do my job. I just want to know, I'm just trying to be, how can I be most effective to you? Right. If it's just by me shutting up and coloring, cool, I'll do that. Right. But like, let me know
You
that
did
now.
not just reference crayons when we're talking
Right.
about
You know, say,
Marines.
you know, it's funny. Everyone makes a joke with Marines, and then you make the joke in person, and you realize you're like, oh, it's not that funny. Oh, because they don't respond.
Yeah.
They're kind of like, oh yeah, crowns, uh-huh, yeah, and you're like, oh, okay, all right. Well, then there's other things that they do that is totally worthy of making fun of them. For
Yeah, but
example,
when you walk away though, they are saying the same shit behind your back.
oh yeah, they talk down on the army all the time. They talk down on the army, like, and don't
The
get me
most
wrong.
the thing that I hear the most is, man, them guys get the coolest toys. They get all the new shiny shit and we get all the junk.
Oh, the Marines or the
Yeah,
army?
no, the army. The army
Y-
gets all the shiny shit and the Marines get all the junk. That's what they
s-
say. That's what I hear the most.
So yeah, so here's the thing. The Army's budget is always growing. But at the same time, the Marines, they have a reluctancy to change and to
Yeah.
accept change. And so then when you have a reluctancy to accept change, I can't just give you stuff and hope you're going to use it. No, it's just going to sit there. The Army, however, they're always willing to accept change. Matter of fact, they're always looking to change, whether it's good or bad. So they're just like, hey, yeah, you want to give us new tanks? Sure. Yeah, we just got
Yeah.
those 2 years ago. I don't know, we'll just find a place for them.
We'll give them to the Marines.
Yeah, we'll give them Marines. They'll figure out how to work those tanks. You give us the new ones. Yeah, we want those. Oh, you want to give us new weapons? Sure, I'm all for it. Yeah. Special forces could use some new cool toys. You know what I mean? And at one point, it'll trickle down to the rest of the army, and we'll be able to say we have all the cool stuff, right? And so that is where a lot of it comes from. That is where I think the Marines are elected to change. However, what I will say is, because in the reluctancy though comes, they are more proficient with the stuff that they have, so
Oh, yes.
they're able to work with a little and make it and turn it into a lot, versus the army is like, no, we need a lot to turn it into a lot. You know what I mean? Like, if you
Yeah.
don't give us it, we're incapable. And that's not always the case, but still, in comparison to the Marines, yes, it's the
Yeah.
Marines are able to take a little and make it a bigger, and work with a lot and make it something into as almost as capable as the army would. So
We'll get back to military equipment in a second. We'll take this conversation full circle. We were talking about communication and how important that is, and getting the job done and working together. Boy, isn't that just like fatherhood?
yes.
Isn't that just like being a dad? You just get, man, you got to figure out what blah blah blah. You got to figure out what that means so that
Mhm.
the kid can stop crying and we can all have a good time. And man, it's really amazing how, if you step back and look at the job that you're doing right now, it's actually preparing you for a lot more than just, combat efficiency. It's preparing you for life at home, preparing you for being a father. Working with your soldiers is a lot like working with kids,
Yeah.
because as you're going to get older, and you said you want to do 20 years, you're contracted for 20, the most you'll do is 23. That's a long time. You're going to be coming across people half your age. And
Mhm.
so you're going to have to take that training that you've gotten at home, and you're going to have to apply that at work. And that's an amazing thing that you already, as a young 29-year-old dad, you already understand how important communication is in a job. You understand how important communication is in the military, and that's only going to make you that much better of a father at home.
Yeah, no, I try, so I totally agree, because I even posted a video the other day, and it was a reel that I made that I talked about, where I mentioned, I was like, uh, communication is imperative. And I tell people, communication isn't you just saying is people just talking to each other or saying things to each other. No, there that may be a form of communication, but what I care about is an effective communication, right?
Yeah.
And so being able to utilize active listening, being able to have a person to what they're talking to you, so you're listening to understand and not just respond, and
Yes.
all these things, right? Like where so many people are wanting to just listen to respond rather than listen to understand. And so it's like, hey, you may disagree with this person, even when you can go, talk about whether you're talking about politics, whether you're talking about how to get the job done, what are you talking about? It's like, hey, listen, understand, because this, you know, that person might have a good idea, might have a better idea. And you just have to be able to understand and acknowledge that, like, okay, not all your ideas are going to be great ideas.
Yeah.
So even with my wife, right? When she has a recommendation or how she thinks we should go about parenting our kids and how we should go about, being what would make me a better leader within in my home, right? I have to be able to listen and take her advice into consideration and listen to understand where she's coming from rather than just saying like, no, I know all. I have more life experience. I know more than you do. So no, what you're telling me is wrong. And this is why it's dumb. And rather, what I'm saying? Like, and that's just listening to respond. And right. And so then uh it's funny because when I do take heed, when I do listen to her advice, say, okay, this is I might not agree with every aspect of it, but I think this is how I can incorporate that. And I do end up incorporating it. It works because she's the one who spends all the time with our kids while I'm gone. And so she
Yeah.
understands them more. And she understands um, what some of their mannerisms mean. She understands more of what their, what to me sounds like mumbo jumbo. She's like, no, she's asking for A, B, and C. And you're like, I don't know how you got that out of that, but cool. I guess that's what she's asking for. You know what I mean? It's like, but she's able to do those things and apply those things. And whereas or when she tells me those things, like, all right, cool. You understand better than I do. So I should be willing to take your advice. I should be able to take your recommendations rather than just sit there and be like, well, no, I'm not going to do that because
Yeah.
I know all. You know what I mean? So it's different. But like, yeah, like I said, effective communication is powerful. But so many people don't learn effective communication at an early on age, or because again, unwilling to listen.
Yeah.
Most young men and a lot of young women are strong-willed, and they would like to believe that their ideas are the only ideas and they're the best
Yes.
ideas. And it's like, you have an idea, I have an idea. How can we, bring our ideas together and make it one awesome idea, rather than you being able to say, I came up with the idea and it's the greatest idea ever. And it's like, cool. I mean, sure, it might be, but I think based off my experience, I can make it better. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's, it's different in communication. Like I said, it's hard to learn. And I tell people one of the best books I read on communication is, oh my goodness. It's in my book. It's over there. It's in my bag. It's to my right. My bag is just slightly too far. There was a book in there. But it's about communication. And I think it's one of the best books, right? Because it talks about different ways ultimately how to communicate with people rather than, like I said, listening to respond and not listening to understand. So
Yeah. Man, that is awesome. That's what I wanted to hear, actually. It's man, it is listening to you tell that story and being able to relate that to parenthood and family, family dynamics, and it's really great. And now I wanted to ask you real quick: does your wife work?
she does not. Well, she doesn't work anymore. So
So she's a stay-at-home mom.
yeah, so she was working at a Montessori for a little bit, and both of my daughters went there, and we were doing that thing we did that for a year. But she was getting a little overwhelmed, and
Yeah.
she was a lead teacher, and they were ready to put more responsibility on her, which is not that she was running from the responsibility. It was just like, hey, like this was going I did this because I wanted to pay for my daughters to go to the school, and it was easier. It just happened to be that you guys were hiring, and we did that, whatever. um and so it was becoming difficult because she was running into the problem of, when she first started working, the shift was from 8 to 5. And
Yeah.
so her and the girls were up, and then around 6:30, and then getting ready, and then at work by her and the girls at school, if you will, at work at 8, and then working all the way to 5, coming home, making dinner, cleaning up the house a little bit, and then getting all of them ready for bed and doing it all over again. And it was like, hey, we're not actually getting any time together. This has just turned
Yeah.
into, it seems like the kids are working too, because like they're there. Well, and the girls were having a great time, but then it was just like, where does the time for family come? You know what I mean? Where
Yes.
does that
Yeah.
come in? And so we had a conversation about it, and she was like, hey, I think I'm going to quit my job. And she was really upset about it. She didn't want to, right? It wasn't that, it's trying to find, how can I get the best of both worlds? You know what I mean? How can I
Absolutely.
work feeling like there's a sense of purpose behind what I'm doing, and then also still have the impact of where I could spend quality time with my kids. And unfortunately, she came to the realization that is the battle or the burden that a most fathers, most men deal with, if they're the ones who are working. And so I told her, I was like, you know you
Oh,
don't
I
need to.
still deal with that. I've been a stay-at-home dad for 10 years. I still deal with it. I've
Yeah.
trying to be helpful and
Hmm.
wanting to be wanting to be needed, wanting to be important, wanting to be that provider. I dealt with a lot of depression and a lot of mental shit with being a stay-at-home dad. When I first started, man, it was very emasculating. It was very, very emasculating. I didn't feel like a man. I didn't
Hmm.
feel like I was taking care of my family. I didn't feel like I was doing the things that I needed to do as a man, as a father. And then my wife just explained it to me like, and I'm paraphrasing what she said. She explained it to me like I do a much better job at the stay-at-home dad thing than she does as a stay-at-home mom thing. I'm much better at the uh and now I don't really keep house nearly as well as she does,
Yeah.
but I handle all the appointments, getting like I don't set the appointments. She actually sets the appointments too, but um I get everybody to where they need to go. I take care of all the bills. Now I'm taking care of all the grocery shopping and getting everything. I basically run the house to where
Hmm.
she doesn't have to. And the only thing that I require her for is she cooks every meal that we have in the house because if people were forced to eat my cooking, I wouldn't have any friends. I wouldn't have any family. Everybody'd hate me. So she cooks all the food and she does a lot of the dishes all the time. And folds laundry. But other than that, I pretty much do everything else. I take care of everything else. And even the things like I want her to take care of, if she doesn't want to take care of those things, then absolutely that's what I'm here for. And we make each other better in that aspect. And I dealt with a lot of the depression, a lot of the what do I do kind of, and that's part of the reason, a big part of the reason why I started the podcast is
Hmm.
because I needed something to take my mind away from all the guilt that I have for not bringing any finance to to the equation, not bringing any money into the house. And which I mean, I take care of all the manly stuff around the house. I do all that, it's but
Yeah.
it's not the same. And I still every now and then I still need my wife to tell me like I'm proud of you. Every now and then I still need to hear from my wife that I'm making the best decision that I can for the family by being home. And when I think about going back to work, man, I just get anxiety because even taking away, even if a part-time job, let's just say 6 hours per day, that means 6 hours per day, I'm not running my house. That
Hmm.
means 6 hours per day that's taking my attention away from the things that make me happy. And as far as money goes, I don't need much. My wife provides enough money for all of us. So um, it would be extremely beneficial for us if I had a job, but
Hmm.
it's nobody'd be happy. She wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be happy. And the kids definitely wouldn't be happy. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's being a stay at home parent is definitely not for the weak at heart. And I got to give your wife props for that. And you said
Yeah.
you guys want to have more kids.
Yeah.
And I tell you, there's wanting to have there's no better job on the planet than being a parent, man. They just that's just my opinion, of course, but
Yeah.
I don't know very many people that disagree. You know,
Yeah.
my
Well,
kids are assholes, and like I'm not afraid to say that they're assholes, but they're my assholes, damn it. You know,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
love them, and it's this being a dad is the most rewarding job that anybody could ever have.
Well, it is, and I love it. I love being a dad, and I will say this, I tell people, and I relate everything to my experience, to my experiences in life that I had, and a lot of my experiences have come from the military. Fortunate for me, and they're translatable to a lot of things I do in life. And I tell everybody, I was like, everybody wants to be the main character. Everybody always wants to be the main character in their movie, right? Or in the movie, if you will, right? And I tell people, I was like, listen, you are not the chosen one. You are not Neo. Okay. I am not him. Okay. I'm not even Morpheus. So, like, I'm that one character that just ended up got turned into, and I got kicked in the face, and it just happened to be because I was standing there. Right. But I tell people all the time, I was like, you have to know your role. And when you know your role and you understand your role, I said, when you know and understand your role, you can excel at your role. And when you excel at your role, man, do you not only do you help yourself, but you also help those around you who also who have supporting roles or who are lead roles, if you will. And then that only betters you and helps everybody else. So for yourself or even for my wife, I was like, hey, your role, while we may have thought it was to be in the workforce and to do all these things, actually your role is better served to be at home. And guess what,
Yeah.
you're doing great at your role, and without you being able to do that, to fit in your role that you're in right now, I wouldn't be able to do what I need to do. And just like you, your wife wouldn't be able to do the things she needs to do. And so I,
Yeah.
I tell people, I was like, hey, there's nothing wrong with having a supporting role, right? Because we all cannot be main characters. I know Hollywood has sold us this idea of being main characters, but we all can't be it. We cannot. I'm sorry, we're not. Just like I even reference to the Bible. Listen, there was only one David. There was only one David, and one David could to take down Goliath. And guess what? We all like to compare ourselves to David, but gosh dang, I heard a guy say it on another podcast, on a Christian podcast before, and he goes, guess what, guys? You're not David. You're not. And I was like, I love that because that's the reality of the situation where we all want to believe that we are the number one, and it's just unfortunately we're not. We're supporting roles, right? Most of us might be following the role of, speaking of David and Goliath, we might follow the role of one of David's brothers who are like, hey, no, you're not going to go fight the huge Philistine. We're not going to, that dude's huge. He's a ginormous, right? Like, nah, man, leave that to someone else. Don't worry. Saul's going to figure it out. And then we'll go from there, but
I'm the
it's,
brother telling David to grab that rock. Let's go take
yeah,
care of business.
yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, like, hey, it's one of those things where I'm like, it's okay. Just learn to accept your role. And once you do, it's an amazing thing happens when you accept your role. It's almost like, um, I don't know his name, but Tiger Woods is caddy, right?
Yeah.
Going to sports, right? I don't know his name. I can picture his face in my head, right? But Tiger Woods understands and knows that without that caddy, without that person handing him knowing to hand him his 9 iron or whatever the case might be, he wouldn't be the champion. He wouldn't be able to be the champion he is today, right? Now,
Yeah.
all credit goes to Tiger Woods and his skills and his capability, right?
But that
However,
caddy is very important.
yes, Tiger Woods understands the role that his caddy plays in him being successful. And so he trusts his caddy to know, hey, we're walking up here, and he doesn't have to say a single word. His caddy already has his 9 iron out and said, no, hey, this is where, I saw it. I'm watching. Boom, boom, boom. You're doing. This is where we're going. Right. It's almost like a strategic planner. Like he's like, hey, I
Yeah.
got you. I know what you're gonna do next. If you hit it here and we go here, I know what you're gonna give you. If you hit it in the sand, I know what I'm gonna give you. If you hit it on the green, I know what I'm gonna give you. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's his role is important. It's just not seen as the most important role on at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so understanding our role.
That is a very beautiful way to put that. And I never really thought of it like that before. And like there's that intelligence coming out there, right? I never really thought of it like that as me being a supporting role. And everybody is like I am the star of my movie. Like I as a stay-at-home dad, that is a supporting role, but man, I got my own movie playing in my head, you know? I that that's a very beautiful way to put that. Thank you very much. And I'm gonna hold
Absolutely.
on to that, and I'm gonna actually tell my wife that here in a little bit. Like I'm gonna like I am your supporting character. You're the main character. I'm your supporting character, and see how she reacts to that.
I would even say, I would even can kind of conclude with this though, that while you're the supporting role in the supporting role for your wife, you're the main character for your kids.
Yes,
And
there we
so like
go.
so like you are so like you're to your kids, they because they understand, they may not understand, like especially the younger ones, they may not understand the why does mom need to be why is mom at work and why is she gone all the time. You understand that, but they
Yes,
see you all the time, so they're like, but dad's here, dad's great, man, we love dad, we're always doing it right. And so you're the main character for them, and that is all that matters at the end of the day, that you're the main character for your kids. You may not be the main character when everyone from the outside looking, when people see your house, but your kids, and that's the most important part, is your kids know that you're the main character for them, and that's all
absolutely.
that matters. So
Absolutely. Well, man, I'm Quan, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate it.
absolutely.
I'm gonna let you get to that fence here in just a few minutes, but
Awesome.
I wanted to about I'm gonna talk about military equipment real quick.
Okay.
Just a few minutes. Like in this conversation, you've mentioned CRAM and a few other things like 88 Mike. I actually know what those things are. I've
Mhm.
never served or anything like that. I'm just a military nut. And
Yeah.
uh, I, my favorite pieces of equipment are by and large Air Force equipment. I've got
Mhm.
some Navy favorite pieces of equipment, but one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my entire life is a Miklik.
Yep.
And my I was watching some uh UA soldiers, Ukrainian military
Mhm.
clearing mines on YouTube a while back. And my wife goes, "What on earth is that?" And I said, "That is one of the coolest things ever made." And I was explaining the Miklik to her, and I was like, "See, they take this line, and it's got lots of explosive charges on it, and they shoot it way out there, and it clears a big old path for you to drive all your equipment through a minefield."
Mhm.
And as you were talking about CRAM on the base, like I had the image in my head of a CRAM shooting down rockets. And what is your favorite piece of military equipment if you have one?
Oh man. Ah. So
It could be anything that you've operated or not operated, just your favorite piece of equipment.
so I will say, this might be sound like it's cheating, but I will say, because I've never operated either of them, but so I love the CRAM, and because so when I deployed and we all understood or had an idea what the CRAM was, so we're like, oh yeah, it's a CRAM. But then I started doing research, so like just YouTubing a CRAM up close, and one, I didn't realize it was a navy, it's a naval equipment, navy,
Yes.
piece of equipment from the Navy. I didn't realize that. Um, and so, and then two, I was like, I didn't realize those things were so huge and how big they were. And so
Yes.
when you watch it on YouTube and you see and you kind of understand how they operate, you're like, yo, those are what's shooting those things down? Heck
Yeah.
yeah, we need about like 10 more of those things. And like, oh, look, they ain't shooting at nothing at us. You know what I mean? I think those are awesome. I love the CRAM, but I also say I love the Apache helicopter. I
Oh,
think
yes.
the Apache helicopter can is one of the coolest things in that the military has, because all right, so in the Middle East, right? Taliban, whoever it is, ISIS, they're like, hey, we're gonna take down the United States and what at whatever cost, right? But let me tell you something. When the enemy hears, and it's too late when they hear it, by the time they hear it, because we call it in, we know it's coming. But when the enemy hears that Apache helicopter coming, There is no enemy out there, especially in the Middle East, who's like, oh, heck yeah, we're about to fight this Apache and we're going to take it down. No, 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 no. Everyone is disperse. I don't care. Every man
Yeah.
for himself. Disperse, disperse, disperse. And they don't play around. And that Apache just will hover over and just lay waste and
Yes.
just let them have it, you know. And look, I eat that up every single time. I'm like, yes,
Apaches
yes,
even sound different too.
yeah.
They sound different because
They do it on
it's
purpose.
yes, it's probably because it's going like faster or something, but
Mm-hmm.
like so a Black Hawk will sound like,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
Apaches sound,
They will, yeah,
you
they will
know.
do it on purpose. They have so it has this ability, right? Where, like I said, by the time you hear the Apache, it's too late.
Yes.
It is too freaking late. You know what I mean? It's kind of like when, there's a jet coming, and you're like, hey, do y'all hear that? And then by
Uh,
the time it's over your head, they've already dropped something. And
It's
you're
like
just like,
hearing
oh,
artillery.
ooh.
If you're hearing artillery, it's too late.
Yep,
Yeah.
100%. It's too late. It's already that round has already gone.
Yes.
And so with the Apache and like some of the capabilities it can do, oh my goodness. I'm just like, yes. I love the Apache. I love it. Now, Apache pilots can be a-holes.
Yeah.
It's a definitely an alpha mentality, you know what I'm saying? When you get a group of
Absolutely.
individuals like who are like, hey man, I'm here to lay waste and and I will, you know what I mean?
Yes.
At the
Yes.
press of a button, like, yeah, the mentality will come with that. But I love the Apache helicopter. I think it's really dope. It's really dope to understand what they can do. So
Military aviation is I've really, really, really love military aviation. My favorite plane's A-10.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
it's one of the coolest things I have ever seen. It's a gun with a
mhm.
plane built around it. That's
Yeah.
literally the history behind the A-10 Thunderbolt 2 is it's a giant gun, and they saw it and they were like, put a plane on that. And that's what they did.
They're like, put some wings on that thing. Give me some pilots.
And
Yeah, there
it's
we go.
essentially a flying tank is what it is. Like
Yeah.
the tub that the pilot sits in is made almost completely out of titanium. So
Oh
it's
wow.
basically a flying tank. And I've really, really loved those. Well, Quan, you know what? This has been an awesome conversation, and I am just I couldn't think of any better way this conversation could have gone. I am so thrilled that you reached out to me, and like I when I found out that you're a podcaster, I was like, wow, because I had doing my initial research, I'd found out that you were in the military and being a
Mhm.
military dad and everything. That's I was going to just talk about that stuff, but then you know, it's a whole lot different talking to somebody that actually knows what I'm trying to do and knows my
Yes.
processes, and because you do a lot of the same stuff. So
Oh yeah.
I appreciate that very much, Quan, and I'm going to let you get to your fence, Ben.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. We'll see you later.
Sounds good.